Okay guys, welcome to the vitamin D video. I've really enjoyed making this one actually because it's an interesting topic and it gets quite a lot of attention in the fitness and nutrition world. Sometimes for very good reason and sometimes for not so good reasons as well. So we're going to be giving out some general guidelines, what vitamin D is, why you should or shouldn't take it, why some things are bad practices like megadosing and things like that, and what can happen if you are deficient and what can happen if you overdose. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the video. So first off, what's vitamin D? I think everyone's heard of vitamin D, but I'll just go over it very quickly. Vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin which we mostly get from sunlight, or we mostly produce from sunlight, is more accurate to say. You can also get vitamin D from foods like oily fish, salmon, mackerel, that sort of thing. You can get vitamin D from eggs, particularly egg yolks, and you can get vitamin D from red meat and fortified cereals as well. For people's information, cow's milk in the UK is not usually fortified with vitamin D, although it is in some countries, so don't get confused there because some countries have it and we don't. Okay, so why is vitamin D spoken about all the time? Well, the reason is because in the UK and other places in the Northern Hemisphere, we don't get enough vitamin D, mainly because we don't get enough sunlight, either because we don't go out enough and because of our climate as well. Okay, so it's both of those things. People are quite deficient in vitamin D in the UK. The figures that I could find were between 30 and 35% of people in the UK are vitamin D deficient. Now, deficient is a specific bar, so a vitamin D test can be conducted on somebody. They'll take some blood and they will take a measurement of, it's nanomoles per litre. So if you're below 25 nanomoles per litre, they'll probably classify you as deficient in vitamin D. But you can be low in vitamin D and you don't come into them statistics. So a lot of people are low and not necessarily deficient, and that's not good either. So apart from getting it from sunlight in food, what do we need to do? Well, we need to take it as a supplement, really. This is one of them very rare occasions where I'm going to tell people that actually most people should be taking vitamin D as a supplement, because it's hard to get in the winter. If you're indoors a lot like I am, you don't get a lot of vitamin D from sunlight exposure either, so you're really sort of exposing yourself to getting low levels of vitamin D and all the problems that are associated with that as well. So NHS guidelines are that you should take, on average, for the average person, 10 micrograms per day of vitamin D, which is 400 international units. You will see international units on the supplement packaging a lot of the time, so I'll try and convert these figures. The upper safe limit is 100 micrograms per day for an average adult. Okay, so 100 micrograms is 4,000 international units per day. Remember, that is an upper safe limit. That's not a target. That's not something where you should be going, yeah, I want to do that. That's an upper recognized safe limit. Okay, so we need to remember the difference, and we're going to get into that in a little while when we go into some of the bad practices that are promoted around vitamin D. Now, for children specifically, because I've seen a lot of conversations about this, so I feel I need to clarify this. Children over the age of 1 should be getting around 10 micrograms of vitamin D per day as well. So that's 400 international units. Now, if the child is under the age of 1, they need to be getting a little bit less than that. NHS guidance says 8.5 micrograms to 10.5 micrograms a day. So basically what it's saying is you need a little bit less on average if you're under the age of 1, which I think makes sense because that happens with most things in nutrition with children. And one other thing that needs to be cleared up is if your baby is not taking baby formula, so that's fortified baby formula. So if you're breastfeeding your baby, the baby preferably needs to be given its own vitamin D supplement. And the reason for that is if the mother is taking vitamin D, that doesn't necessarily translate to the baby. So your baby's probably not going to get all the vitamin D that they need from breast milk if you're breastfeeding. Okay, there's a lot of research about this online. I've tried to keep this screenshot free today, but you can go and find that yourselves. But yeah, I've seen a lot of conversations about people saying if the mother takes vitamin D, then that's enough for the baby, and that's not true. So I just want to make sure that we all know about that. Right, so what happens when you're either deficient or taking too much vitamin D? So if you're deficient in vitamin D, you can have a worse functioning immune system, which means that you could potentially get ill more often. Okay, this has been researched heavily, and there are sort of mixed opinions on this in the field as well, but I'm not a doctor, so I'm just giving general information that's suitable for most people. You can also, in some cases, develop things like rickets and other bone conditions. Obviously, vitamin D is regulating the calcium and phosphate in your body, which is important for bones and teeth. So if you're deficient, then that's not going to happen properly. And if you overdose on vitamin D, which I'll go into more in a minute, you can develop hypercalcemia, and you can have calcium buildup in your arteries, in your soft tissues, and you can really damage your kidneys. So guys, if you see people telling you to megadose online, don't do it, because even though, yes, this is rare, this is noted to be a very rare thing, it can happen, and it just isn't worth it, because you can get a healthy dose of vitamin D without subjecting yourself to this risk. So it's really, really not worth it for anybody to be doing this at all. So where does high dose vitamin D come from? I think the main thing here is that vitamin D can be, like any supplement or medication, it can be prescribed by medical professionals in specific circumstances for certain people in the medical, in a medical scenario. So there have been cases where people have been given very, very high levels of vitamin D when they're super deficient in it. I've seen research, just doing research for this video, people have been given 20,000 IU a day, 30, 50,000, 100,000. But that's a very, very short-term thing, and that's only while they build somebody up back to a normal level. That is not a long-term thing that you're taking every day. And if you take 100,000 IU of vitamin D a day, you are at a high risk of overdosing on vitamin D. And like I said, it just is not worth it. So what I think actually happened is that people have said, oh, because they do it, the doctors do it to these people under these specific circumstances. And there are quite a few circumstances where they might do it. That's okay for everybody else. And it's not. So if you're taking more than 4,000 international units of vitamin D per day, I'm going to ask you, why are you doing it? Do you have a reason to do that? And has your doctor told you to do that? Because if they haven't done that, then really it's probably not the best idea in the world, even though vitamin D toxicity is relatively rare. Now, there are some people who have ongoing medical conditions where they are recommended to take a little bit more vitamin D per day, but those are medical conditions again. Those are not the average person. And on the other side of that, there are people who can't take as much vitamin D per day, so the average guidance might not be suitable for those people either. They may need to take less. So it is very much dependent on your personal circumstances, so please don't get drawn into extremes, particularly when it comes to things like this. And an extra note here is that vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, which basically means it needs fat in order to do its job. And you can overdose more quickly and more easily on fat-soluble vitamins than you can on water-soluble vitamins. So for example, vitamin B12 is a water-soluble vitamin, and you have to take an extremely high amount of that vitamin to overdose on it, because it's water-soluble and because of the nature of what it is as well, okay? But if it was fat-soluble, you could overdose on it relatively easily. So that's some of the misinformation and hopefully clarified things. Now, what I will say as a caveat to this is when people like the NHS and others give out guidelines, they do tend to be a little bit conservative in their guidelines, and they do that on purpose. They do that because they don't want people taking close to limits that can actually harm them. So while it might be a little bit conservative to say take 400 IU a day, for example, it's still the guidelines, and it is that for a reason. Okay, it's to keep everyone safe, and it's to meet the average person's needs. So finally, before I wrap up the video, people who should be taking vitamin D, particularly those who are at more risk, those include people who do not get outside very much at all, and that's in the summer or the winter. So if you just don't go outside at all, you're more likely to have a deficiency and need to take vitamin D. Also, people who have darker skin tones. So if you have African, Caribbean descent, South Asian descent, if that's you, then data basically says that you don't absorb vitamin D as effectively if you have a darker skin tone. So obviously it's more important for you to take vitamin D as well. Okay guys, so I've tried to be as neutral as possible. I've tried to stay, within educational sort of guidelines here. I've tried to acknowledge some of the nuance and the conversation that goes on around vitamin D, but at the end of the day, guys, I'll give the same advice to everybody with regards to most things health and fitness related. Stay away from the extremes. If someone's promoting something really extreme, which they do with vitamin D, it's better to steer clear of that. It's not worth it, guys. It really isn't worth it. I guarantee you, if you see an influencer online telling you to take 20,000 IU of vitamin D per day, they probably haven't got a clue what they're doing. And they're not a doctor probably, so just, stick to guidelines. Remember that they are conservative for a reason. And take your vitamin D. And if you need specific medical advice, ask your doctor. Obviously, don't just follow what I've said here. And thank you guys for watching, and please subscribe, comment, like, and let me know what you think. And thank you very much.